34 years old. 12 years in uniform. One silver star on my chest. And my own mother still looked me in the eye and said, "The military is embarrassing." Then she handed me a blue dress. Like a costume. Like a cover-up. Like if I wore it, I could hide everything she had spent years pretending not to see. What she didn't know was that 152 people would be waiting inside that ballroom. 14 of them were veterans. One of them would stand. One of them would salute. And by the end of the night, my family would finally learn exactly who they had been hiding. My name is Tara Mason. Captain Tara Mason. United States Marine Corps. But in my mother's house, I was never Captain Mason. I was Tara. Don't make this weird. Tara, keep it simple. Tara, please blend in. That was my job in the family. Keep the peace. Carry the weight. Swallow the insult. Smile like it didn't cut. And for years, I did. I showed up for birthdays. I sent Mother's Day flowers. I flew home for funerals. I stood in corners at family parties while people asked my brother about finance and asked me when I was finally going to settle down. Nobody asked what I actually did. Not once. Not my mother. Not my father. Not even Will. My little brother. The golden child. The one everyone could understand. He had the right job. The right watch. The right fiancé. And now he was marrying into the Whitford family. Old money. Quiet money. The kind of money that doesn't need to shout because everyone else already knows its name. My mother said Whitford, like it was a promotion. Like Will wasn't just getting married. Like our whole family was being accepted into a room she had spent her entire life trying to enter. "We're finally going to be the kind of family people respect," she told me over the phone. Finally. That word stayed with me. Like all the years before had been an embarrassment. Like I had been part of the problem. Still, when she asked me to fly home for the wedding, I said yes before she finished the sentence. I always said yes. That was my weakness. I booked the flight. Pressed my dress blues. Packed my challenge coin into the inside pocket. And told myself it would be simple. A ceremony. A toast. A family photo. A flight back to base. I can plan operations under pressure. I can give orders when people's lives depend on my voice staying steady. But put my mother in front of me with that disappointed face. And suddenly I'm 13 again. Small. Quiet. Trying not to be a problem. That weekend taught me exactly how expensive that habit had become. The first hit came 4 days before the wedding. I was in my old bedroom unzipping my garment bag when my mother knocked once, and came in before I answered. She had a dress over her arm. Soft blue. Expensive. Careful. She laid it on my bed like an offering. "I thought you could wear this." I looked at the dress. Then at her. "I brought my uniform." Her face tightened. Just a little. "The Whitfords are very refined." I stayed still. "The whole evening is black tie." She touched the dress. "A uniform would be a lot." "A lot." I almost laughed. "There will be military people there?" "No, Tara." She said my name like I was making things difficult on purpose. That's exactly the point. I picked up the hanger holding my dress blues. Officers wear dress blues to weddings all the time. She shook her head before I finished. "Just wear the dress." Then she said it. "For once blend in." There it was. Soft. Almost gentle. That was what made it worse. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't insulting me in the dramatic way people imagine. She was politely asking me to disappear. I held my uniform in one hand. Her dress in the other. Like a scale. And I felt the old reflex rise in my throat. Say yes. Make it easy. Don't ruin Will's day. Don't make Mom cry. Don't make it weird. I almost did it. God help me. I almost said yes. Instead I said, "I'll think about it." Relief washed across her face. She squeezed my arm. "I knew you'd understand." Then she left the dress on my bed and went downstairs to call the florist. I sat beside that blue dress for a long time. I had carried rifles, gear, wounded Marines, the kind of grief that changes the shape of your breathing. But somehow that dress felt heavier than all of it. Because it wasn't fabric. It was an instruction. Be smaller. Be softer. Be easier to explain. Be anyone except yourself. That night, I sat on the floor of my childhood room and reached into my uniform jacket. My fingers found the coin. David's coin. Plain. Heavy. Edges worn smooth from 8 years of my thumb.
Lance corporale David Brennan.
21 years old. Indiana. One stoplight town. Terrible candy always melting in his pocket. A grin that made even bad days feel survivable. The week before the worst morning of my life, he pressed that coin into my hand. For luck, ma'am. I tried to give it back. He refused. So I kept it. I still have it. He doesn't. That is the part one don't say out loud easily. There was a road. A vehicle. A morning that should have gone differently. 6 of us were there. 4 came home. David was not one of them. I have replayed those 92 seconds more times than I can count. I have made peace with parts of it. Not all. You don't make peace with everything. Some things you just learn how to carry. That coin is how I carry him. So when my mother said the military was embarrassing, she wasn't talking about a career. Not to me. She was talking about David. About the road. About the medal. About the worst and most important morning of my life. She didn't know that. But ignorance doesn't make a knife less sharp. I turned the coin in my palm. Looked at the blue dress. Looked at my uniform. And thought, you have stood in worse rooms than a ballroom. But that wasn't true in the way that mattered. I had faced enemies. I had faced loss. I had faced fear that smelled like dust and metal. But I had never faced my mother. Not really. The rehearsal dinner was at the Whitford house. And the house was exactly what my mother wanted it to be. Old. Elegant. Certain of itself. Portraits on the walls. A library with a rolling ladder. A back lawn running down toward the water. Nothing flashy. Nothing desperate. Real money doesn't reach. It simply waits for others to notice. My mother moved through that house like she had trained for it. Laughing too brightly. Touching elbows. Dropping names. Introducing Will like he had personally restored our family honor. She introduced me almost never. And when someone did ask, she used the line she always used. Oh, Tara is between things right now. Between things. I was a decorated Marine officer. And my mother turned me into a pause. I let it happen. That was the part that still bothers me. I let it happen. I found a quiet corner with water and watched my family perform. Then I noticed 2 things. The first was a black and white photograph on a side table. A young man in uniform. Marine. Jaw set. Eyes steady. The second was an older gentleman across the room. Silver hair. Straight back. He looked at me for 1 beat too long. Then gave the smallest nod. I nodded back. I thought he was just being polite. I should have paid attention. I was so busy being small that I missed the biggest thing in the room. The Whitfords were not the people my mother thought they were. And by the time I understood that, it would be far too late for her to recover. The next morning, Will found me in the kitchen. 9 o'clock. 2 mugs of coffee. That careful face men wear when they're about to ask a woman to make herself easier. So he said, the uniform thing. I waited. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, it's just, the Whitfords are kind of formal. I stared at him. And I don't want it to be a whole thing, you know? A whole thing. It's my day. His voice softened. I just want it to go smooth. Then came the sentence. Just be normal for 1 day. For me. Normal. Like I had been abnormal all along. I looked at my little brother. The boy I taught to ride a bike. The man who never once asked where I had been when I came home quieter than before. Will, I said. Do you even know what I did over there? He blinked. Opened his mouth. Closed it. Then gave me the answer that told me everything. Sure. A pause. You know. Marine stuff. Marine stuff. That was my life to him. 12 years. Deployments. Command. Loss. Blood. Leadership. David. A medal. All of it flattened into 2 careless words. Marine stuff. I nodded. I'll be there. He looked relieved. I'll behave. Then I walked out before he could see my face. Lunch that afternoon was worse. Aunts. Uncles. Cousins. My mother at the center of the table like a judge. The topic eventually became me. It always did. Not who I was. What was wrong with me? So Tara, are you seeing anyone? No. Aunt Carla made a soft sad sound. Like I had confessed to being terminal. You know, you're not getting any younger. I passed the rolls. That life can't go on forever. That life? My uncle chimed in. Hadn't he read the military was downsizing? Was I worried? A cousin asked if I'd thought about a real career after I got out. A real career. Every comment landed like a small stone. One. Then another. Then another. I smiled. Passed plates. Answered politely. Got smaller with every breath. My mother watched with quiet satisfaction. Because this was her language. Her family confirming her version of me. The phase. The problem. The strange older daughter who needed softening. But one person didn't join in. Aunt Diana. My mother's younger sister. She sat at the far end of the table. Silent. Her mouth tight. Her eyes moving from me to my mother and back again. At one point, she opened her mouth like she was about to speak. Then stopped. Reached for her water instead. I noticed. The way you notice a door cracked open in a house you thought was empty. For hours later, Aunt Diana would change everything. Almost by accident. After lunch, I went upstairs. And did something I'm not proud of. I tried on the blue dress. I told myself it was just to check the fit. That was a lie. I wanted to see if disappearing would be easier. The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. My mother always knew how to make something look presentable. I stood in front of the old mirror. The woman looking back at me was lovely. Soft. Appropriate. Harmless. She had no edges. No history. No blood on her boots. No coin in her pocket. No name she carried into quiet rooms. She was exactly what my family wanted. Which meant she was nobody in particular. I thought. I could do this. Wear the dress. Get through the wedding. Smile. Dance once. Leave. Nobody would be uncomfortable. Nobody would be angry. I would go home, put the coin back in my uniform pocket, and tell myself it didn't matter what they saw. Because I knew the truth. Except I had been telling myself that for 12 years. And somewhere along the way, that had become a very clean excuse for cowardice. Not in combat. Not in command. In the only place I had never been brave. My own family. My phone buzzed. Aunt Diana. No message. Just a screenshot. I opened it. And the floor tilted. It was a family group chat. Wedding logistics. Everyone was in it. My mother. My father. Will. The aunts. The cousins. Everyone except me. My mother had written. Please make sure no one encourages Tara to wear the uniform. The Whitfords are extremely refined, and it would be humiliating. Seat her at table 11 near the back, away from the head table. Then the line. The one I can still recite word for word. The military is embarrassing, and I won't have her turning Will's wedding into a parade. Thumbs up reactions. A cousin wrote. LOL agreed. Will replied. Fine. My father said nothing. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Still in the blue dress. Still in the mirror. Still looking like the woman they wanted me to be. And the strange thing is, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I went very still. That kind of calm has nothing to do with peace. It's the calm right before a decision. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed. The phone screen glowing beside me. Table 11. Near the back. A parade. I picked the phone up again and saw the timestamps. My mother sent it at 1:40. My father read it at 1:42. 2 minutes. He had 2 minutes to say something. Anything. He said nothing. That silence opened something in me. Because for years I had told myself my father was trapped in the middle. Quiet. Gentle. Uncomfortable. Not cruel. But silence is not neutral when someone is being erased. Silence takes a side. And my father had been choosing comfort over me for most of my life. My mother's cruelty at least came from fear. His came from convenience. That hurt worse. I stood. Unzipped the blue dress. Took it off. Hung it back over the chair. Smoothed the fabric flat. Almost gently. Like I was saying goodbye to a version of myself. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I was done. That afternoon, I went to the venue early. The reception would be held in the ballroom of a historic club the Whitfords had used for generations. I told myself I needed air. A task. Something to do with my hands. The staff moved around me setting tables. Crystal. Flowers. Candles. Everything perfect. I walked the room the way I would walk a position before anything important happened. Entrances. Exits. Sightlines. Old habits. Near the entrance, I saw a brass plaque. A scholarship fund. Dedicated in memory of a Whitford patriarch. In the hallway, a display case held old photographs. More than one showed men in uniform. Then Sloane found me. My brother's bride. Pretty. A little frazzled. Kind in a way that did not feel fake. She walked beside me. Pointed at one of the photographs. That's my grandfather. A young Marine. The same face I had noticed at the rehearsal. He served, she said warmly. He's the reason this family is the way it is. She said it like everyone knew. Like military service was not embarrassing. Like it was the foundation. Then someone called her about seating cards, and she hurried away. I stood in front of the photograph. Something turned over in my mind. Quiet. Slow. But I had too much inside me to chase it. That was the mistake. I kept noticing the most important thing and walking past it. In my defense, I had spent the afternoon deciding whether I was finally going to stop hiding. I had no idea the family my mother wanted to impress had spent generations honoring the exact thing she was ashamed of. The night before the wedding, I made my choice. I laid my dress blues across the bed. Flat. Precise. I checked every button. Every ribbon. Every seam. This was not about revenge. I need you to understand that. I was not planning to ruin Will's wedding. I was not going to give a speech. I was not going to expose the group chat. I was not going to attack my mother in front of old money and photographers. I was simply going to stop helping them hide me. There is a difference. And it matters. I pinned my medals in order. My fingers slowed at one. The silver star. I had to set it down. Pick it back up. Try again. My hands are steady under almost anything. They were not steady that night. I reached into the jacket. Touched David's coin. Brennan. I whispered. Just once. Then I slid the coin into the inner pocket. Over my heart. Where it belonged. The morning of the wedding, I arrived before most of the guests. Garment bag over my shoulder. And I made one decision that should tell you exactly how much I still loved my brother. I did not wear the uniform to the ceremony. I changed into plain clothes. Slipped into a back pew. Because the vows belonged to Will and Sloane. Not me. Whatever my family had done, I would not pull a single eye from them during that moment. That was my line. I sat in the back and watched my baby brother get married. And I cried. Real tears. The good kind. He looked terrified and happy. Sloane looked at him like he was the answer to a question. For a few minutes, none of the rest mattered. That's the cruel arithmetic of family. You can know exactly how little someone has fought for you and still love them with your whole chest. After the ceremony, guests crossed the lawn toward the ballroom. 202 yards. I counted without meaning to. The staff opened the great doors. A string quartet began playing. Glasses clinked. The room filled. 152 people. The Whitfords whirled. My family scattered among them. My mother already working the room. Laughing. Performing. Winning. I waited until the room was warm and loud. Then I walked to the side room where my garment bag was hanging. Closed the door. And took out my dress blues. I had the coat on. Medals straight. White gloves ready. My hand was reaching for the door when it opened. My mother stepped inside. She saw me. Her face went white. Then pink. Then panicked. What are you doing? Her voice was low and fast. She shut the door behind her. Tara, we talked about this. I thought about it. I kept my voice quiet. I'm wearing my uniform. No. She stepped closer. I won't make a scene. You already are. I'm going to take my seat. The back seat, she hissed. Yes. The one you chose for me. She froze. Only for a second. Then recovered. Just wear the dress. No. For once in your life, blend in. No. These are not our kind of people. You don't know that. And you do not get to turn Will's wedding into a parade. Her hands were trembling. And I saw it then. The scared 13-year-old she used to be. The girl in shoes a teacher once held up in front of the class. The girl who grew up hungry and embarrassed and decided refinement would save her. I saw her. I understood her. And I still said no. Don't you dare embarrass us in there. Her eyes were wet. A plea. A threat. A lifetime of fear in one sentence. I looked at my mother. And said the only thing I had left. Mom. I opened the door. I'm not the embarrassing one. Then I walked out before either of us could take it back. The ballroom was enormous. Gold light through tall windows. Head table at the far end. Dance floor in the middle. Guests standing in clusters with champagne and soft laughter. I entered through a side door near the back. That mattered. Because I did not have to cross the room. I did not have to be seen. Table 11 was along the back wall. Exactly where my mother had placed me. I could still make myself small. Even in uniform. Old habits are stubborn. For a second, I hugged the wall. Eyes forward. 12 steps. Maybe 13. Then the air changed. You learn to feel attention shift. A room drops by half a note. One person sees. Then another follows their gaze. A woman near me stopped mid-sentence. A man touched his wife's elbow. The quartet kept playing. Then faltered. I saw my mother in the center of the room. Her laugh died on her face. Her hand flew to her throat. My father turned to see what she was looking at. His face went gray. At the head table, Will half rose from his chair. And I felt the old voice one last time. Sit down. Hug the wall. Get to table 11. Don't make it weird. I almost listened. Then across the room an old man stood. Silver hair. Straight back. Tuxedo. Glass left untouched on the table. His eyes locked onto my chest. Onto the silver star. His whole bearing changed. He had been a wedding guest 1 second. The next he was something else. Sergeant Major Frank Harrison. I learned his name later. Retired. 32 years in the Corps. Old friend of Sloane's late grandfather. But in that moment, all I knew was this. He recognized what my family refused to see. The quartet stopped completely. One instrument at a time. Until the last violin trailed off into nothing. The whole room turned toward him. He took one breath. The kind you take before a command. Then his voice filled the ballroom. Silver star in the room. 7 words. Steady. Clear. Absolute. Then again. Silver star in the room. And he saluted me. An old man in a tuxedo. In the middle of a wedding. Saluting a captain he had never met. Because the medal on my chest had told him the truth. The words landed like a stone in still water. Silver star. Not a phase. Not a parade. Not an embarrassment. The 3rd highest award this country gives for valor in combat. And my mother had tried to seat it 12 feet inside the back door. I stood very still. I am trained for incoming. Not for honor. A salute from a stranger across a wedding floor opened something in me that years of being ignored had welded shut. My eyes stung. I did not let tears fall. I came to attention. Crisp. Clean. The way David would have wanted. Then I returned the salute. In the silence that followed, I heard a chair scrape. Then another. Then another. A man at table 6 stood. 60s maybe. Dark suit. Shoulders squared. A woman near the dance floor rose in an evening gown. I knew from her posture before I knew anything else. A heavy-set man by the bar set down his drink and pushed himself up slowly. One hand on the table, old injury in the movement. An older gentleman. A woman with gray hair pulled tight. A man near my age. One after another. Across the ballroom. 14. I counted later because I needed to know. 14 veterans. Scattered among 152 guests. And every one of them stood. Some saluted. Some stood at attention. Some just lifted their chin. The civilian version of, I see you. I know. You are not alone in this room. The silence went deep. No whispers. No music. No glasguer. Just a room full of people understanding all at once that my mother had read everything wrong. I stood there in dress blues. Hand at my brow. David's coin pressed over my heart. And somewhere near the center of the room, my mother made a sound. A small broken inhale. That was the moment the full weight of what she had ordered hidden landed on her in front of everyone she had tried to impress. Gerald Whitford moved first. Sloane's father. The patriarch. The man my mother had been performing for all weekend. He crossed the floor toward me. Not embarrassed. Not appalled. Eyes wet. He stopped in front of me and took my gloved hand in both of his. Captain Mason. His voice carried. We are honored to have you here. Honored. Not tolerated. Not accepted. Honored. Then he turned to the room. My father served 2 tours in the Corps. He nodded toward the black and white photograph by the entrance. He came home and built this family on one rule. He paused. That we never, ever forget what people like the captain pay so the rest of us can stand around in a room like this. The room stayed silent. He pointed toward the brass plaque near the door. The scholarship. The foundation. The work his family had done for veterans for generations. And while he spoke, my mother's entire strategy collapsed in real time. The Whitfords were not humiliated by military service. They honored it. Funded it. Protected it. Gathered veterans close. The refined people my mother feared were the very people most likely to understand me. She had hidden the one thing they would have stood to salute. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then she opened her mouth. We are so proud of her. Her voice came too fast. Too bright. She hurried toward me with both hands out. We've always been so proud of our Tara. Our Tara. She reached for my arm like she had earned the right to claim me. Like she could rewrite 12 years in 12 seconds. Some guests who didn't know better smiled. Ready for the pretty family moment. But the veterans saw it. Gerald saw it. Sloane saw it. Will saw it. And I saw it most clearly of all. It was not pride. It was damage control. Her fingers tightened around my sleeve. Her smile held for the room. But her whisper cut under it. Don't do this. I looked at her. Just for me now. Her eyes flashed. Don't embarrass me in front of these people. Even there. Even then. Surrounded by people standing in honor of what I carried. Her fear was still herself. Her image. Her place in the room. I felt calm. Completely calm. For the first time in my life, my mother no longer looked bigger than me. She looked small. Scared. Human. And no longer in command. You spent the whole weekend afraid I'd embarrass you. I said quietly. The room heard it. Quiet carries when everyone is listening. You sat me at the back. Her mouth opened. You called this a parade. I looked around at the veterans. At these people, the ones you wanted so badly, just stood for the exact thing you were ashamed of. She looked to Gerald. To the guests. To my father. To Will. Searching for rescue. No one came. My father had gone pale. Will stood fully now. One hand over his mouth. The room waited inside the silence my mother had built and could no longer escape. I turned away from her. Because my last words in that room were not for her. I looked at Sergeant Major Harrison. At the 13 others. Then I dropped my salute and gave them a small nod. Thank you, I said. You have no idea what it means that you stood. Then I reached into my coat. Behind the medals. And pulled out David's coin. The light caught its worn edge. I didn't earn this alone. My voice stayed steady. There were 6 of us in a vehicle one morning. The room did not move. 4 of us came home. A woman near the windows covered her mouth. This belonged to the one who didn't. I looked at the coin. His name was David Brennan. I swallowed. He was 21. The air changed again. Softer now. Heavier. He gave me this for luck the week before. A pause. And he made me promise to carry it. I closed my fingers around it. So I carry it every day. I touched the medal on my chest. This medal isn't mine. Not really. It's his. And the other names you'll never know. I looked at the room. I stand here because they don't get to. Silence. So deep I could hear my pulse. I put the coin back over my heart. Where it lives. I had not exposed the group chat. I had not shouted. I had not ruined my brother's wedding. I simply told the truth. And the truth did everything my anger never could. Because the uniform was never a weapon. It was just the truth. And the truth had only ever needed one thing from me. To stop helping them cover it up. Slowly people sat. Like a tide going out. The music returned. Softly. Carefully. The wedding remembered it was a wedding. Then Will came down from the dais. My little brother crossed the ballroom in front of his new wife. His new family. Everyone. He stopped in front of me. For a second, he just looked. Really looked. Like he was seeing me for the first time. I didn't know. His voice broke. Then he shook his head. I never asked. That was the first honest thing he had said to me all weekend. Maybe in years. I never even asked Tara. He wasn't performing. There was nothing to gain. The Whitfords already loved him. The wedding was already his. This was just my brother standing inside the wreckage of a story he had believed because not believing it would have cost him something. I'm sorry. No excuse. No explanation. No blaming, ma'am. Just sorry. On his wedding day, that took more than I expected from him. I put my hand on his shoulder. The way I used to when he was little, and the world felt too big. It's your day. He wiped his face. I know, but go dance with your wife. I smiled a little. Ask me about it tomorrow. His face shifted. Tomorrow? Yes. I squeezed his shoulder. Ask me tomorrow. Because that was the difference now. They had spent 12 years not asking. And one of them had finally learned how. He nodded. Then hugged me. Hard. Publicly. In front of everyone. I hugged him back. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. But because a door had opened. And for once he had walked toward me. Sloane watched from the head table, one hand pressed against her chest. When Will returned to her, she took his face in both hands and kissed him. The room exhaled. The hard part was over. The reckoning was just beginning. My father found me later near the windows. Away from the music. He looked older than he had that morning. Smaller somehow. In his hand was an envelope. Soft. Creased. Handled too many times to be new. He held it out. I kept this. I stared at it. They sent it after. I knew what he meant before I opened it. The official letter. The one the Corps sends when something like a silver star happens. The careful language. The formal praise. The version of trauma that fits on paper. I never knew it reached you. His eyes dropped. It did. I looked at him. He swallowed. I read it. The envelope shook in his hand. Then I put it in a drawer. I waited. All these years, I let your mother decide who you were. His voice went rough. I'm ashamed of that. I took the envelope. The paper felt thin. Almost fragile. I want you to know I'm ashamed. The old reflex rose. Say it's okay. Make it easy. Comfort him. Carry this too. I did not. It's not okay, I said gently. His face tightened. But I'm glad you finally said it. He nodded. No argument. No defense. And for the first time in my life, my father and I stood together inside a true thing. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a start. My mother tried one more time near the coat check. Away from the crowd. She had rebuilt her face by then. Powder. Lipstick. Control. Tara, she said. We should put all this behind us. I looked at her. You made your point. There it was. Your point. Like my life had been a debate. Let's not ruin the family. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because I finally understood she still thought the problem was that people had seen. Not what she had done. I didn't fight her. I was done fighting. Mom. She lifted her chin. I'm not putting anything behind us. Her mouth tightened. And I'm not ruining anything. I stepped closer. I'm just not hiding anymore. She said nothing. If you want me in your life, I'll be there. A pause. In my uniform. With my name. With my history. The same as everyone else. Her eyes filled. But I will not sit at the back of it again. I held her gaze. That's the boundary. Take it or don't. She didn't answer. Which was its own answer. The fallout came quietly. Real consequences usually do. Gerald Whitford asked me to speak at his foundation dinner that fall. I said yes. Sloane started calling me on Sundays. Not out of duty. Not because she married my brother. Because she wanted to know me. The cousins who had laughed in the group chat suddenly became very curious about my career. I did not rush to educate them. My mother's careful standing with the Whitfords never fully recovered. Not because I destroyed it. Because the room had seen. And some things cannot be unseen. A month later, Will called. Not texted. Called. What was David like? He asked. I sat down when he said it. Just sat right there on the edge of my bed. And for the first time in 12 years, I told my brother a real story. Not the clean version. Not the polite one. A real one. About candy in cargo pockets. About terrible jokes. About a 21-year-old who should have had decades ahead of him. Will stayed quiet. Not distracted. Not impatient. Listening. When I finished, he said, I wish I'd asked sooner. So do I said. It hurt. But it was honest. Aunt Diana sent me a message after the wedding. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. Then another. I should have said something sooner. She should have. But she sent the screenshot. Sometimes courage arrives late and still matters. My father called twice before I answered. The 3rd time I picked up. He didn't ask for forgiveness. That helped. He asked if I would tell him about the letter. About the award. About what I wanted him to know. So I did. A little. Not everything. He cried. I let him. I did not comfort him out of his accountability. That was new for me. Hard. But new. My mother sent flowers to my apartment. No note. Just flowers. White lilies. The kind you send when you don't know how to apologize but want credit for trying. I put them on the kitchen counter. Looked at them for 2 days. Then threw them out when they started to smell too sweet. 6 months later, I stood at the Whitford Foundation dinner in front of 300 people. Not hidden. Not softened. Not seated at the back. Gerald introduced me as Captain Tara Mason. Not Will's sister. Not an honored guest. Not a token. Captain Tara Mason. The room stood before I said a word. This time, I let the tears come. Just once. Then I told them about David. About service. About the cost of being seen only after sacrifice. And about the strange mercy of being seen at all. Afterward, Sergeant Major Harrison found me near the exit. Same straight back. Same sharp eyes. You did good, Captain. I smiled. Thank you, Sergeant Major. He nodded toward the coin in my hand. You still carry him? Every day. Good. Then he saluted me again. Smaller this time. Private. I returned it. And I felt David there in the quiet. Not gone. Never gone. Just carried. Here is what I learned that weekend. The people worth impressing already understood what the uniform meant. The people worth keeping did not ask me to shrink. And the shame my family tried to hand me was never mine to carry. Not for 1 day. Not for 12 years. Not ever. My name is Tara Mason. I am 34 years old. I am a Marine. I am a sister. A daughter. A captain. A woman who finally stopped walking along the wall toward the table someone else chose for her. 1 uniform. 14 people who stood. 1 mother who learned too late that the room she wanted to impress had more honor than she did. And 1 lesson I will carry for the rest of my life. If someone asks you to hide the strongest part of yourself just to keep their peace, don't. Walk in anyway. Let the room go silent. Let the right people stand.